Good evening. Q's Views 8, the 2024 presidential election. Kamala Harris, the Donald, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The American presidency is up for grabs, and the margins are so thin that nobody really knows who is going to win. With under a month to go, why does the American presidential election impact upon us? As long ago as World War I, the Americans made the decisive difference in European affairs. After a period of isolation and then their major impact in World War II, they refloated a shattered and sunk Europe with their money in the Marshall Plan. Europe has flourished under America's protection ever since. During the Soviet era and until today, the Americans count. President Trump was keen for European states to shoulder more of the cost of the defense burden, particularly now that America's deficit is still burgeoning. But let's begin with the ruling party. The Democrats had been underplaying current President Joe Biden's incapacity. After his disastrous debate with ex-President Trump, they could hide it no longer. So the Democrats rid themselves of their geriatric, and at their convention, Vice President Kamala Harris was acclaimed, rather than voted, as the Democratic nominee. She offered joy. Try telling that to the Americans whose loved ones have been killed, maimed, or abducted by illegal immigrants. Of the estimated 10 million illegal immigrants, most of whom just want a better life, 13,000 were murderers. All this time, Kamala was supposedly in charge of the borders, but she hardly ever went there. When she finally got there, it was for a photo opportunity. Try selling joy to the parents of the military killed in the botched departure from Afghanistan. Kamala is trying to say that she is a new broom, which is a difficult sell since she has been in power as vice president for well over 3 years. Is Joe Biden, the old duffer, unaware of her pitch as a new broom when he is saying that she was closely involved in everything that he did? Or is he just jealous that he was denied the chance to run again and deliberately scotching her chances? Criticised for not giving interviews, Kamala speaks in a linguistic soup of platitudes, placebos, and sound bites. Even with these disadvantages, commentators believe that she did better than Trump in the sole presidential debate. So there are no new ideas here, just those rehashed from what would have been Biden's campaign. Were she to be elected, it will be service as usual. If Trump were to win, he will be the first president since Grover Cleveland in the late 19th century to be out of power for 4 years and then resume for his second term. Europeans tend to regard Trump with disdain and suspicion. However, he has placed some interesting people around him. His vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, was born on the wrong side of the tracks. In Vance's moving autobiography, Hillbilly Elegy, we read that he is Appalachian stock. These tended to be Irish, escaping famine, and Scottish farmers ejected from their livelihoods by their aristocratic landlords in what is known as the Highland Clearances. They settled particularly in Kentucky and Ohio. Vance's grandparents provided what his mother, dysfunctional, often lovelorn, and sometimes drug-addled, could not: stability. Against this difficult background is economic decline, closed factories and shops, and scant hope of improvement. Long before Vance went into politics, reviewers of Hillbilly Elegy remarked in 2016 that this was the constituency responding to Trump's appeal to make America great again. A stint in the Marine Corps, including in Iraq, which his Democratic vice president opponent Tim Walz avoided, gave Vance fitness, discipline, and self-belief. At Ohio State University, he prospered, and generous grants to Yale Law School enabled him to achieve social polish. Whether Trump wins or loses, this senator from Ohio, who is only just 40, is a man to watch. The third candidate was Robert F. Kennedy of the Kennedy Democrat political dynasty. He tried to stand as an independent in November's forthcoming presidential election. It cost him so much in every sense. He was denounced by his own family and impeded at every turn by the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris refused to take his calls. Until the assassination attempt on President Trump, he was even denied protection as a presidential candidate. This, despite the assassinations of his own uncle, President Kennedy, and of his father, who would almost certainly have won the Democratic nomination and the 1968 presidential election. By contrast, Robert F. Kennedy's appeal is like mother and apple pie. Make America healthy again. It is a change from the fractious and almost fratricidal divisions between Democrat and Republican. Nobody can disagree that the health of Americans should be improved. There is an epidemic of obesity and mental health problems. As a lawyer, he had taken on those vested interests before and won. It's no good having good ideas if you cannot implement them. He is a man in a hurry with, he reckons, about a decade left to deliver. After constant rebuffs from the Democrats, RFK was able to convince Trump and has asked his supporters to vote Trump. This means that were Trump to be elected, Robert F. Kennedy is going to come up against vested interests: the military, the agricultural, the food processing, and the pharmaceutical lobbies. I just hope that were the Donald to win, he will keep with him if the going were to get tough. When Trump was a TV star, he disposed of apprentices with alacrity. Then he fell out with co-authors of his books, and even with Steve Bannon, who turned his floundering 2016 campaign around. Nothing is more corrosive of democracy than a disputed election. Despite what the BBC tells us, the 2020 presidential threw up statistical anomalies which were worrying. If you disbelieve me, hear Hugh's Views 4. This time, for the sake of us all, in the United States of America and everywhere else, I hope that we can have an undisputed winner of the presidency. Good night.